Welcome to Lesson 2 of How to Fly. In Lesson 1 we learned that the airspeed is controlled by the pitch of the aircraft. If the nose goes up, we slow down. If the nose goes down, we speed up. And we learned to use the horizon as the reference for our airspeed instead of the airspeed indicator. We also learned to use the horizon as a reference for our angle of bank in a turn. And the third thing we learned was that altitude is controlled by the use of the power. If we add more power, we climb. If we reduce power, we descend. And so through a combination of raising and lowering the nose to maintain or change our airspeed and adding or reducing the power, we can then go into climbs and descents at various power settings. And when we combine this with turns, we can go into climbing or descending turns and have perfect control of the aircraft. In Lesson 2, we're going to practice climbing and descending turns at 1 airspeed. In level flight, the top of the horizon is just above the nose. This is our reference for level, and it gives us about 350 kilometers an hour. Notice how I set the angle of bank by using the reference of the horizon against the top of the nose. But also notice that the speed in the turn has now decreased. As we go into the turn, there is more drag and less lift. The drag causes the loss of speed. So what we want to do is to learn to control that loss of speed by adding power. Remember that we are not adding power to increase speed, we are adding power to increase lift and maintain our altitude. That has the side effect of speeding us up. To maintain our speed in the turn, if it's a shallow bank, we don't need much power, so we're going to add about 100 RPM, from 2000 to 2100. This appears to be the right amount to maintain the speed and the altitude. And when we roll the wings to level, we should reduce the power back to 2000 to maintain the airspeed that we entered the turn at. If we have a shallow angle of bank and we add too much power, then we are creating too much lift and the aircraft will therefore speed up. In theory, we're actually pushing the nose forward to stop us climbing, and by pushing the nose forward, we're pitching the nose down and therefore increasing the speed. So obviously, if we're going to go to a steeper angle of bank, we're going to lose more lift and require a little bit more power to keep us at the same speed. At this angle of bank, it looks like 2200 RPM is the right setting to keep us at 350. There are no control movements necessary to keep the horizon passing through the same point on the nose. So now let's set up a climbing turn at 350. Where does the nose need to be in relation to the horizon? And what power setting do you need? And of course, when we return to straight and level flight, to maintain that same speed, we merely bring the power back to 2000. And the same theory applies to a descending turn. We're going to reduce the power to descend and then control the airspeed in the descent with the pitch of the nose. Now, how much simpler could that be? Your understanding of airspeed control is critical. If you lose control of your airspeed, you will crash. This is especially important when you're slowing down to land the airplane. There is an area of flight called slow flight. And it is important that you can recognize when you are entering slow flight, because slow flight represents the conditions leading up to the stall, and when an aeroplane stalls, you lose control. Watch how during takeoff I lower the nose to increase the speed and hold the horizon in the same spot on the nose. As the speed reaches 200, I'll raise the nose and we start to take off. I'm going to level off, then make a descending turn to the right without keeping my airspeed. I will use this buildup of speed to go into an aileron roll. Then I will lower the nose to bring the speed up again and bring it up to a half loop. At the top of the loop I will turn the engine off and then glide down to land on the runway. In order to maintain precise airspeed control, I am simply applying the principles that you have learned here. The tendency is for new pilots to always be looking inside the cockpit at their instruments, when what they should be doing is looking outside at the horizon reference. And if your eyes are outside the cockpit, it gives you the added advantage of being able to see the enemy before he can see you. I recommend to you now that once you've practiced your climbs and descents at various airspeeds and are fairly comfortable with that you look at my other two videos on slow flight. In Lesson 3, we're going to look at providing some finesse in your turns. We'll learn to use the rudders correctly so we don't slip or skid in a turn, and we'll learn to use the trim. The trim is an aerodynamic control which helps to take the pressure off you as you're flying. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and if you're having trouble taxiing your aircraft on the ground, then take a look at my taxiing tutorial. That'll get you sorted out pretty quickly. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, found it helpful, please like it or subscribe. Or if there's another topic you'd like me to cover, please